Hello, welcome to another episode of Old Says Podcast. This week we've got Andy Maunder on, who owns a butcher's down here in Devon. He's father to one of the lads in the team, Jack Maunder, and he is a former Exeter Chiefs centurion. So cheers for coming on, Andy. Thanks very much.
A pleasure. Thank you very much. We better mention Sam Maunder as well, hadn't we?
Oh, and Sam Maunder. Of course, I was actually sorry. That's
I know really, he's only a young one.
That sounds really bad. I was having breakfast with him about an hour ago. It's only because Jack's just here. No, incredibly memorable. Sam and Jack Maunder, who are both current players, both played last week. That must have been a proud. Is that the first time that's happened? You've seen that both your lads playing in the.
No, they about 3 years ago, Sammy said that he came on, I think it was Sale at home, and that was another great moment. But because it's taken another 3 years for it to happen again, I have to say it was really special up at Bath, and I've always been a big Bath rugby fan. So to see Sammy, I know. Let's not dig into that too deep.
Not to expect that. Like,
back from the day,
of course,
Not more recently, maybe, but back when there were many divisions above Exeter, I thought they had a good brand, and Richard Hill, the scrum half, played for them, who I thought was a good player. So So anyway, Sammy came on with about 15 to go, and got his brother out of trouble because obviously you were losing at the moment.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we started that pretty slowly actually, Jack, I'd say. No, but it was. What was the? So you were. I suppose you were there like in the early days with Chiefs. What was it? You know, what kind of years did you play for? Did you sort of start playing for them and stuff like that? Were you always playing for them were they like your childhood team and all that kind of thing? What was it like on the come up, I suppose, at the club?
I really never got involved with Exeter till I went to Seal Lane Agricultural College. So I went down there to study food technology, and there's a guy called Richard Gibbons who was
he's still at the club,
and he invited me to come along and play, so I started training, and I played a few games for the third team, and then injuries happened and they gave me a go in the first team. So this would have been back in the late 80s, I'm guessing, sort of thing. So at that point it was all friendlies. We were playing against local teams, losing against local teams. My first game at the old county ground was against Oakhampton, and I think it was either 3-3 or 4-4. I can't remember.
4 point. How do you?
4-point try in those days.
Oh, okay.
It was back those black and white tellies. We all had forward boots on and leather balls, so to speak. Yeah. So that was at the time.
What'd you play with?
Too easy.
Sorry, that's a softball. It's a softball.
At the time, Exeter were going through a bit of a dip. They had been a fantastic club. The likes of Rob's father and uncle, John Baxter, etc. That family had been involved. John Lockyer, who is with Devon Radio now. Bob Stadden, who is the present chairman. They've been involved. They've been England trialists, and Exeter were a force to be reckoned with. Then it went through a bit of a dip. Those boys came back to do the coaching, and they got us all together and said, what we need to do is attract the best local talent, and to do that you've got to start winning against the locals. So at that point it wasn't a given to beat Oakhampton, Launceston, and Torquay. They were, relatively big fixtures back in the day.
They were deemed to be bigger teams than Exeter.
With along with Brixham, they were at that point. Locally, it wasn't a given. There was something called the Devon Cup. So Bob Stadden set about saying, right, we've got to start winning the Devon Cup, because if you win the Devon Cup, you actually won something at the end of the season. There was no leagues, there was no promotion. You didn't win anything. You played all year. Bizarre, really, think about it now, isn't it? You just played because you enjoyed it with your mates. And at the end of the season, it's like, how do we get off? We won more than we lost. Yay, let's start again next year.
So you didn't play sort of outside of the Devon area, or was it literally just local teams?
No, to start with, we would play in South Wales.
Yeah.
So we'd go over there for a bit of a rumble, as you did in the day.
Up the valleys?
At the valleys, yeah.
Really small pitches.
Really small pitches. Yeah. And we would go down into Cornwall, which used to be great fun. I'm part of me is Cornish, so I can appreciate the passion that involved down there.
Yeah.
We went down to St Ives, and it was their 100th anniversary, so they invited Exeter down to give us a good hiding. And we were running onto the pitch, and they told us all to fuck off back to England. And we were like, fair enough. We will in a minute, but there's a game to be had. So we got, I think, again, another thrilling game. I think we won 8-6. I think it was another fantastic game in the mud. Anyway, so we kind of did local, and then because Exeter had been a great club, we would go to the other end of the scale. So this is back in the day. You got to Fylde, which is Blackpool.
Oh yeah, we played them.
Yeah, we used to play them with Loughborough.
Yeah. So
up in the northwest.
That's it, Blackpool and above, and then we would go to Morley and Sheffield. So yeah, it's kind of a mixture between the local teams and then right up north, which we all loved. As was
that like on a tour situation?
We treated them as tours. We definitely treated them as that way. We'd take the passport. We'd go up on we're going up on a Friday night and stay in a hotel, which was interesting for a lot of the boys because they hadn't been in hotels before, so that was fun. And then we'd play the game on the Saturday. And then we would go out Saturday night and we would go making friends up north, and it was great fun.
Yeah,
and then you get on the coach at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, usually with most of the players, not always. We had to leave a few behind in various establishments, and we would arrange to get them home in the following few days if we needed them the following Saturday. But it was at that time when it was just deciding what it wanted to do. On a more serious note, do you want to go professional or do you want to keep it an amateur sport? And there was a lot of discussions at the time about the right way for the game to go. You had the purists that just wanted it to be.
So there was a kickback from people who didn't want it to go professional.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, there was a lot of people who didn't think that was the right way to go. Didn't want money to get involved. They wanted it to be the pure sport.
A gentleman's game, was it?
Yeah, exactly. The gentleman's game played by hooligans. Or is it a hooligans game played by
I think
gentlemen?
It's the latter. Yeah. But I'm not too, who knows these days. But it's crazy that now seeing where the club and the sport is as a whole. That at one point it was actually a debate of like which way they wanted it to go and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, very much it was. And I think that the thing that kicked it forward was the fact that the leagues arrived. So suddenly you were in a league. One season we had to go to London. I can't remember the team. Far too many hits on the head. I can't remember. We had to go to London, and we played this game in London, and we won the game. And we were coming back in the coach, and Bob Stadden said to me, "That's great news. We won today." And I said, "Yeah, yes." And he goes, "Well, that means we, by right, are in the national leagues next year." So I'm like, "What's all that about?" He said, "Oh, they've set up some national leagues, and Exeter, because we won today, and because of our history, automatically go into Division 3." So that was the first year we went into leagues. So that following season, we were in a table, and you played the likes of Coventry and Bedford and Fylde and Nuneaton, etc., all those old clubs that had been around forever and are still around in certain leagues. And so suddenly we were in a league.
So you didn't even realise before that game that it was gonna, winning it was gonna have such massive ramifications.
Yeah, I don't think Bob wanted to. Too much pressure onto our West Country shoulders, It's just a bit of fun, boy. So that, no idea. We're coming back, and he's like, "Oh, that's great news." And it's interesting. It's like, is it great news? Even at the time, we didn't know, because a lot of the boys we all worked. So you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all week you'd work, and we had people working on the roads. We had labourers, we had butchers, we had accountants, we had doctors, and so. We didn't know at the time, did that mean we weren't going to be able to carry on playing? Did it mean that where we were going to go? Because a lot of people in those times could earn an awful lot more money outside of rugby than you could in.
Was anyone drawing a wage from the...
No, there was expenses, and expenses lead to boot money and bits and pieces. But my last couple of seasons, I was what was called like a semi-professional. So I did actually get paid for the last nothing that you could survive on, but 50 quid here.
That's. I feel like the sun's massively in your eyes. Do you want us to move that picture?
I can shift it across. Yeah.
I feel like the.
It's going to get there in a minute, isn't it?
Is that better?
I'll just.
Is there any?
I'll just sit up like this.
I was right, 'cause I feel like it's like, I don't know, man. I really don't like the sun being in my eyes. So.
That's right. No,
is it helping at all, that picture?
No. It's back up in there. It's fine. Honestly, don't worry, Harry. It's fine.
What I was going to say was, you said then you got put into the 3rd division. Was that actually the 3rd league? 'Cause, at the moment you've got the Premiership and then League 1, League 2, League 3. So was 3 back then actually number 3?
That's right. It was number 3, and they messed around with it quite a lot back in the day because I think I'm right in saying the first league there was League 1 had 10 teams, 2 had 10, and then 3 had 10. So there were 30 teams in a national league.
Yeah.
And then there was relegation and promotion through those leagues. It would be what the equivalent of the Nat 1, I guess.
Nat 1 would be now, yeah.
Nat 1. But I don't know. But then, so there were Exeter. We used to be at the top of that 3rd division. So if you think that would be like the 20th to 25th best team in the country.
Yeah.
So now you'd kind of be at the bottom of the championship, maybe.
But could you climb the leagues?
You could do, yeah.
There was no real interest from Exeter to do.
I think back when the league started, it was a case of we would like to because we wanted to win and we wanted to go forward, and we had a group of boys that wanted to take it seriously. The likes of Rob Baxter was around, Andy Green, Trevor Harris was propping, and he, so that we took our rugby very seriously, but at an amateur level, and it was a good feel. But there was definitely we wanted to progress, we wanted to win, but Exeter were at the time not going to be paying. It was like, we're in the leagues, but we're not interested in paying, and they were quite resistant. I think they're probably one of the clubs that were the most resistant to playing,
changing. As the game changed as well. Yeah. It was quite a lot. It was quite a lot more dirty, wasn't it, as a game? That's why. Whenever I look back on because I used to, John Mitchell.
No.
He played over in New Zealand. He coaches. I think he'd be around sort of late 40s, early 50s, and when he tells us stories about when he used to play, it sounds kind of Wild West situation.
Absolutely, yeah.
With kind of borderline psychopaths just running around trying to near enough kill people on the pitch and kind of getting away with it. And it's all a bit of fun.
Yeah. You got to remember again
genital mutilation, all these sort of things.
There were people who. Without rugby, I think would have taken that aggression out on the street and would be in jails, and that's not an exaggeration. It's legalised thuggery. But you had a referee. You had a referee, and then the home team would supply the touch judge. So, and this is in league rugby. So it was the Wild West. If the referee was looking the other way, then all hell would let loose. For an example, there was one of my friends. So I'm a weedy little scrum half. I'm one of the girls that sits on the back, and therefore I needed protection from all the big nasty boys. And so I had Trevor Harris, who was the prop, and a dear friend of mine, a lovely man, but he would just look after me. So as long as the first scrum, he'd say, if you put the ball in before I'm ready, I will hurt you. This is my own team.
This is your own team.
So I'd say, that's fine, Trevor. I really don't know what you want. I don't know what you're going to do in the front row. I still don't know what you do in the front row.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the first scrum would go in, and the referee would be put the ball in. The crowd would be screaming, put the ball in. I'm like, I'm not fucking the ball in. I'm not.
Until Trevor says...
When Trevor gives me the sign, then I'll put the ball in.
What was the signal?
Well, it was usually just a grunt. And that I knew that whatever he wanted to do to his opposite number... and the opposite number had done to him, and they both kind of get things sorted out, and then I'd put the ball in. So there wouldn't be a game that would go through without a fight. You had to get yourself sorted out in the first few scrums or the first line outs. But the old things that you hear are said about that the call goes out in the line out and you don't jump for the ball, you just turn and punch the person next to you.
Yeah, because it wasn't like handbags. It wasn't like handbags, was it? It was quite serious fisticuffs. That's what it seems like anyway.
Well, I think it was just getting that level so that we could get on and play rugby. And you've always liked to get yourselves, get your level. Am I bigger, harder than the rest of them? And then after that, then you can throw the ball on and we'll actually get a score and a result out of it. So yeah, there was always my first game. Something had happened and the opposite hooker squared up to me. He's looking me right in the face like this because he thought I'd done something. And next thing I saw is Trevor Harry's fist arrive in this guy's face and through like that. And Trevor Mauns, and I look back and the ref looks at me and this hooker's lying on the floor at my feet. And so he looks at me and looks at this hooker and he goes, "That wasn't you, was it?" I said, no, it wasn't me. So they had, that was against Nuneaton. They had 2 sent off and we had 2 sent off.
So he did brandish red cards on occasion. They tried to clean it up because just went too far.
As always, someone goes too far. There was no, people would get punched, and it was, but it was at quite a respectful level. No one really, you weren't stamping on people's heads. You weren't. There was. Everyone had to go to work on a Monday morning, and I remember we always used. How many times in the game it would be said, "Look, boys, let's all calm it down. We've all got to go to work on Monday. Let's just chill the H out of this because we're done now. Can we play? We can play."
Yeah.
But the likes of Rob Baxter, the likes of Trevor, the best boys. You needed those people to be able to handle themselves because otherwise you'd be bullied. And if you're going to be bullied on a rugby pitch, and teams still get bullied now, don't they? I watch and I think these guys are getting bullied.
Yeah.
But then it was a proper bullying, and you'd get a good hiding if you weren't careful. And also you could
It's quite a good metaphor for life almost. You got to look after yourself, or at least have someone around you who can look after you if the shit hits the fan, I suppose.
Yeah.
It makes me think of ice hockey these days. They literally have an enforcer on the team that comes out and will fight the other guy, and they'll sort that out first, and then the game just sort of carries on as it was.
Well, it's funny because a little while ago I used to do I did it with you a couple of times.
No, we did it a few times at the hospitality,
which was great fun. And I would see all the old players, and they'd say to me, "Well, what are they like?" And I said, "Well, they're exactly the same as we were back in the day, but just with a lot more money." But I can imagine you would have played back in the day in the front row at Exeter or whatever your chosen club would have been, and you would have, because it would appear to me you love rugby and you love the camaraderie and you like that environment. So there isn't any different. And then the old boys that I used to play with say, "Well, who's the enforcer? Find out who if the shit's going to hit the fan, who do you want? If it's one of my Jack or Sam, who is he thinking? Right, this is going to get nasty. Am I going to look for Harry, or is it Johnny? So that's one of the things they always want to know, because that was a big part of
the game back then.
And often hard.
It has just fully gone out. It's hard to have that now, because if you did anything like that, it happened against Saracens with the former player Byron McGuigan. Did you see it on the Saracens game on? Like, he sort of judo threw him a little bit. It was a little bit OTT in my opinion. It's a red card straight away. Yeah. Probably like a few week ban. I just think it's 3 week ban. It's 3 week ban. Cheers, Jack.
Well, it's for a height, you get any contact with the head these days, it's like straight off. Out. So never mind. If someone threw a punch, it would be, God knows how long the ban would be.
Trevor running around there throwing, soccer punching people by the sounds of things.
But the thing is that if I remember back, that the really hard ones were the people who could take the punishment. I mean, people. You go out and I worry, and people, to be hard, you've got to go out and punch people, and you've got to. The actual hard people I've met in my life are the ones that take the injury, take the battle, get back up again, say good shot, go back in again. At the end of the game, go up to the opposition number and say, "Cracking game today. You caught me with a beauty. Let's go and have a pint." Those are the kind of that's a sportsman.
That's a truly
hard man.
Yeah.
Know when you've had the rub against you. Not to take cheap shots, not to be, anybody can run up, and so I don't want to make it sound like it's. I'm saying that the aggression was the fun bit, because particularly for us girls in the background, it wasn't. It was part of the game.
Yeah, it was just a different.
And I'm glad it's been cleared up, because although it's amusing looking back on it, I also know people who have been concussed and then can't work for 2 or 3 weeks and all the rest of it. But they do stick in your memory, don't they? There's one thing. With what's he called? Still at the club at the moment. Works for Harry Langley. Do you know Harry Langley? he's got that house. Hodgie lives with him.
Yeah.
So he's
I do know.
Yeah, he used to be second row at Exeter, and one of these particular times there was a scrum was happening and it wasn't going Exeter's way, so the call went through to Harry to put one through, and I didn't know this. I wasn't putting the ball in because they weren't ready and Trevor hadn't done the grunt. And with that, our hooker's head flopped straight out the top of the scrum like that, and George is looking at me dazed like this. And then the whole scrum erupts laughing, both sides, because the call had gone through to Harry. Harry had put the punch through and hit our hooker, not theirs.
He punched his head through the scrum.
Through the scrum, yeah.
Jesus Christ! Yeah.
And it just like that. So the referee called blows his whistle, and everybody's laughing, and he's like, "Right, what happened?" And it's like, it was one of ours. Just pack down. We'll start again.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'd be remiss if I didn't just quickly inquire just while we're on probably the last before we move on to the meat about the roly poly onto the pitch. I
tell you what, it's great, and I think that it's for any young rugby players out there. The only thing I'm known for is doing a roly poly onto the pitch.
No, absolutely no. Obviously, no. I think it's obviously quite an outlandish entrance onto the pitch.
Well, you're talking every game roly poly.
Every game roly poly. I'm
disappointed
that the boys haven't followed that forward, because I think it's a
I think
they
should both definitely, as I've told them many times, they should follow it forward.
I mean, I don't know. When I was at school, PE, all we did was forward rolls. And most people, when they left school, never did a forward roll again. But I just took it to a different level, really.
Well, and that's literally all there is to it.
No, basically, there was
love of forward roll.
There was a game when it was really muddy and messy, and again, being a scrum half, and I didn't have a very good game. And the coach said, "Why not?" And I said, "Well, I didn't want to get dirty." And they said, "Right, next game you're doing a forward roll onto the pitch. You'll get wet, you'll get cold, you'll get messy, and that'll start you off much better." So the next game I did a forward roll.
Yeah.
And I played okay. So, and I am cripply superstitious. I'm just cripplingly. So if I do something that then means that they win, Jack will tell you, I've worn the same jacket to watch boys play ever since they started, but they wanted to know we were there. So it's an orange jacket. Horrible. Anyway, it's an orange jacket, and I wear it, and you look up in the crowd, everyone's wearing normal clothes, and there's this idiot that's not a steward is me, so they can see me, and so they played well when I was wearing it, so I carry on wearing it. It's crippling.
And you will wear it.
Yeah, I've worn it in Argentina, and when you were out, you were in Argentina.
Yeah, that's right. I met you in Argentina.
Right.
Yeah, that was the.
Yeah, no.
Was that? Did you go to both weeks?
Yeah.
Santa Fe and San.
Yeah.
A few strange cities there. A lot of stray dogs in other.
Yes.
It's one thing you get used to. They're not being in England are stray dogs, and then you see them in other countries, and I'm like, there's shitloads of them running around.
Yeah. So yeah. There's. So that's the forward roll. It was purely just to get used to the conditions, and then after that, just superstition.
And then it ended as a career-long kind of.
And then it ended up as
a trademark.
As a trademark.
So what's do you want to speak about? Do you want to go into the?
Yeah, well, so
the meat a little bit.
Kind of moving on from the rugby. The other thing we wanted to talk to you about today was obviously you are now transitioned out of your rugby career, or were you doing it the whole time? You were running the butcher shop whilst you were.
Yes. So I worked all the way through rugby.
Yeah.
So I've been in the meat industry all my life. My great-grandfather set up a business in the West Country. He was based up in Witheridge, which is up toward North Devon. Farmers, and then they had a butcher business.
Yeah.
And one of my great uncles, I guess, anyway, went to London, Hugh Maunder, and he had butcher shops in London as well.
Yeah.
So that's where we started back in 1898. Was when my family started going from farming into butchery.
Okay, amazing. And so you've still got a shop now in you're down towards the beach, aren't you? Exmouth Beach.
Yeah. So we've got. So basically, we started by having butcher shops.
Yeah.
And then my great grandfather went to London to get a wife. Extend the gene pool, always important in Devon.
Got to avoid those web toes.
Exactly. Yeah, well, we say about the Maunder family, you kick one of us, we all limp, and it's actually pretty true. So he went off to get some improved genes, which he managed to do. Lady from Birmingham, so yeah, lovely. Anyway, so he went to London. While he was in London, he met a bloke called John Sainsbury's, who went on to have a few supermarkets, did slightly better than my great-grandfather. And anyway, he said, when you go back to Devon, if you've got product you'd like to send me, we'll sell it in our Sainsbury's supermarkets that we're going to do. And it was at the advent also of the railway line.
Yeah.
So one of the important things always is logistically getting product around, particularly stuff that's going to go off. So my great-grandfather built an abattoir at Willand, right next to the railway line. And there was a sidings there at Willand, so the train used to pull in. We used to put product on it. You go straight to London, and then the next day it was for sale. So without that access, we wouldn't have been able to grow. Anyway, so we did that. We started supplying them. We had an abattoir there. We used to kill lamb, pork, beef, venison, anything really.
Yeah.
Again, I always say about grandfather, the only thing my grandfather met and didn't kill was my grandmother. And again, it's not far off the truth of it. And at the same time, he decided to get some butcher shops.
Yeah.
So if we skim forward to 2008, the family sold the abattoir business. So we were supplying all the supermarkets with pre-packed meat, and in 2008 the family sold the business to a guy called Ranjit Singh, who has two sisters, which is the biggest poultry producer in the country. Produces, I guess, about 16 million chicken a week, I should think, something.
Jesus Christ,
that's a lot.
I thought that was an annual
no
like dose of chicken.
It's about 16 million. It's a tsunami of chicken.
So you're looking at billions of multi-billions of chickens a year, is it?
Yeah, but for 16 million a week, they grow for 6 weeks. So on the ground, you've got 16 times 6. What's that? 96 million chicken on the ground at any one time.
Yeah.
And then you've got further down the chain. So yeah, he bought the business, and the family decided to sell, and the family sold me as well. So I was prostituted into the industry, and I had to work for him for 3 years, which I did, which was fascinating.
Yeah.
So I worked for him, had to stay for 3 years, and then I stayed another 2 years. So I was with him for 5 years, which was fascinating. And at the same time, I bought the butcher shops off the rest of the family. Yeah. So we now have 12 butcher shops.
Okay.
11 in Devon, and 1 in Somerset up at Dulverton.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, that's now what I do is work on in the butcher shops, or with the people I work with who run the shops.
Cool. Nice. And one of the things I kind of want to speak to you about was Harry mentioned to me before that you've done a little bit of debating with vegetarian vegans on the, I suppose on eating meat versus not eating meat. And this is something that I get asked on all the time because we sell meat-based product, our nose to tails product. So I don't know if you know, but we sell organ meat capsules, which are freeze-dried heart, liver and kidney from cattle. Like I said earlier, we're bringing out a bovine bone. We sell beef testicle as well, capsulated.
That's my favourite.
That's Harry's favourite, yeah. A few different bits and pieces.
Very low testosterone. No, I'm joking. I actually got very high testosterone.
because of the beef testicles. But yeah, I get questioned all the time on, sort of the ethics and everything, eating meat. And the way I kind of break it down is look at the ethical argument, the nutritional argument, and then the environmental argument behind it. And I think the ethical argument, I was speaking to a friend of mine's girlfriend not too long ago, and she said to me, I understand that it would be better for me from a nutrition perspective if I ate meat. And I also don't believe meat is necessarily bad for the environment, but I just can't stand the thought of an animal dying for me to eat. So it's like, I kind of get that. That's fair enough. But I think, all the data that I've seen in terms of scientific studies or I should say actually legitimate data that I've seen, because there's a lot of dodgy studies out there. And then all the anecdotal data I've seen from, speaking with people, like we were saying earlier, Harry and I have got a friend, Tim, who was in veganism for a long period of time, and he's come out of it, he started eating meat again. It's shown that from a nutritional angle, that human beings do better eating meat. So I feel like once you kind of break that argument down nutritionally and environmentally, veganism almost becomes an ideology then if you're purely doing it for those reasons when the data doesn't suggest that's the case. So I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on, you know, the kind of the environmental impact meat has, and then also from the nutrition angle, or just any way that you kind of come at these debates.
So I think first thing I'd say is I think it's brilliant that you're using what most people would consider as a byproduct of meat.
Yeah.
And that to me is a major issue with the industry, is I make a living off animals. And that gives me the responsibility to treat those animals, or to deal with people who are going to treat those animals with respect.
Yeah.
When the animal has been killed, and I appreciate that's a big issue for people. I'm not in that camp that thinks that you have to kill the animal yourself to really know what it's like, because I don't think that is the case. I think you leave that to the professionals. Once you've killed that animal, then you must use every single part of it. So first thing, absolutely salute the fact that you're taking those products, not just the meat, but you're taking the offal, you're taking the bones, you're taking every part of it and using it, because that shows a respect for the animal. The biggest disrespect for me and the biggest welfare issue is people will buy a whole chicken, they'll eat the breast off it, and then they'll throw even a leg away or a wing away. Hugely disrespectful. And I think what we've got to do always in life, things are complicated, and I think what you've got to do is you've got to educate people in a way that is they understand. Well, first of all, you've got to get in their faces and make them think what you put in your body is important. Once you've done that, then you can start the conversation, because you're talking to someone who cares about what they're eating. And therefore, the first thing I say is, if you want to eat, if you don't want to eat meat, that's fine, but do it, as you were saying, for the right reasons, not for reasons that someone back down the pub told you.
And I think from just when people come to me and say they're not eating meat, the first thing I go to, I deal a lot with nutrition. That's kind of my bread and butter, and I just think, in terms of micronutrients, like we've got however many micronutrients, and they're required for optimal function as a human being. We need them for literally everything we do. They're the language our body understands. And when you're eating a vegan diet, especially, and to a lesser extent a vegetarian diet, it's hard to get those micronutrients into your system. There's things that people don't understand. So, for example, when you look at zinc's a good example, right? So plant food that has zinc in it usually also has phytic acid in it. Phytic acid is what's considered an anti-nutrient, which blocks the absorption of zinc. So although X, Y, or Z plant food might have a load of zinc on paper, the actual amount you're absorbing is probably a hell of a lot less. And then you've got certain nutrients like vitamin A is a really good example. Iron's also a good example, where you have two forms. So vitamin A, you have beta carotene, which is the form which is in plant food, so in carrots, sweet potatoes, often in orange stuff. And then you've got retinol, which is the animal form, which is what you'll find in beef liver in abundance, stuff like that. Our bodies can absorb these animal forms really, really well, whereas the plant forms we really struggle with. And some people, there's a gene, I think it's the BCMO1 gene, which... I'm trying to dig figures out the back of my skull here, but I think they did a study and it showed that 65% of women in the UK have the BCMO1 gene. That stops you from absorbing beta carotene at all. Wow. So if you're a vegan that's not, so you're not getting retinol into your diet and you're eating beta carotene, you've got this gene, you're not absorbing vitamin A. Vitamin A is essential for eyesight. We had this chat the other week because
carrots.
Carrots for eyesight. There is some merit to that.
Well, there's a lot of merit in a lot of the old-fashioned ways of eating, isn't there? I mean, it's not just that, is it? There's a lot of things that we could discuss, but you're dead right. It's like amino acids, isn't it? You can't create amino acid in your body. You have to take it in. So when the trappers went to America, they were living off rabbits and only rabbits. They were getting ill. And they were like, well, eating healthily, I'm eating rabbits, but a rabbit doesn't have the amino acids we require. So that's why they were getting ill. So it's, yes, absolutely vitamins. Yes, it's the ability to absorb the vitamins. But do you know what? A mixed diet, meat and 2 veg, those old skills, or the old caveman diets of, your meat, your veg, your fruit, things that you can get locally from your environment.
Yeah.
That's what you need to be fit and healthy.
Yeah, 100%. This is a big debate and this is one of the problems with social media at the moment, right? It's so polarizing, and you've got a lot of people who are in the vegan camp, you've got a lot of people that are in the carnivore camp, and I've eaten vegan diet for 3 weeks when we went to the Himalayas in India, and I've eaten carnivore for a month in the UK, and I've basically come back to that center point where I've settled on I eat local grass-fed meat and I eat local organic vegetables, and that's how I feel best. And I think although it's like kind of more attractive to be on one end of the spectrum or the other, in reality the vast amount of people are going to do better walking that middle line.
You're dead right. One of the conversations that I did have, I was at Exeter University, and they did this house should go vegetarian stroke vegan. And so they had me there as a butcher farmer, and they had a local vegetarian and vegan. And it was an interesting debate. And as I said, I'm one for people eating less but the right amount of meat.
Yeah.
And if you buy a chicken, then you eat the whole thing. Then you put the carcass in a pot and you make a stew, stock from that, etc.
Yeah.
And we're having a debate. And I turned around to this guy and I said, you cannot live a vegan or vegetarian diet in the West Country without importing the nutrition that you require.
Yeah.
So you people out in the crowd here, gotta get them stirred up. I said, you are all globalists.
Yeah.
So if you're a vegetarian vegan and you're shouting at me, that's because, and I'm going to shout back at you because I'm not a globalist. I don't think global trade is the answer to all our problems. I think supplying and delivering locally. So you can take your planes of food and you can go and stuff them, because I'm not having you telling me that I am ruining the planet because I'm the meat industry. Because it's easy. I'm the bad one. And I always used to do this with the compassion world farming. I'm the devil incarnate because I kill animals for a living. Absolutely. And there will be people who hate me. Fine. But don't hate me until you understand that what I do is I buy from local farmers. We have farmers who would walk their stock to our abattoir. We would buy from local farms. And those farmers, the beef and the cattle, would be mother's milk and grass. Yes, they would be slow grown. Yes, they're going to be more expensive. But remember, I'd rather you bought less but more expensive.
Yeah.
And that's not because that money goes into my pocket. It's because you're buying better quality than it's the farmer, and you're doing a community. And actually, why not, instead of saying I'm going to go vegan or vegetarian, say I'm going to buy as much as I can locally, like you've just said. And that, to me, that's, no, I can't buy a laptop locally. I can't buy my Apple phone. Well, those things take priority in people's wage packet way too high. It frustrates me madly. It's the first thing, the last thing anybody's going to give up is their mobile phone, and is their entertainment. And I find that frustrating. Understandable. I'm not a Luddite, and I'm not so old I don't get that. But for me, the meat, the food, the veg is the most important thing.
Yeah, of course.
So why are you going to tell me I'm wrong locally supporting farmers who can produce product? Okay, chicken, same thing. Buy English chicken, you can buy from the West Country. You can produce chicken food without soya, so it can be a locally produced diet. Then we're using all the water on the planet. Excuse me, I live in Devon. I'm interested in Devon. I'm interested in Somerset and Cornwall. We've got more water than we can possibly ever. When was the last time we had a drought?
Yeah.
What we do
I don't think we can run out of water.
No, we can't.
I don't think the Earth can run out of water or oil. But that's a whole different conversation.
The reality is that there's the same water on the planet now as there was in the diner. We are a sealed system. The water is in one format or another. It doesn't disappear. So we are really good in the West Country at growing grass.
Yeah.
Really shit hot at it, actually. We've got the best climate. We've got fantastic family farmers who know what they're doing. Great CO2 sinks.
Yeah.
Then somebody the other day in the Telegraph went and said, hang on a minute, locally produced in the West Country, family-run farms are the future to save the planet.
Well,
wow,
that is quite a big claim. They got a lot of responsibility on their shoulders now.
They
farmers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There was literally a study done, I think, within the last couple of years. It's a beef farm, a cattle farm in America called White Oak Pastures, and they got an independent body come in, and they compared the amount of CO2 given off by their cattle compared to, you know, the amount that was sequestered into the soil by the cattle with factory farmed, and then they compared it with like the Impossible Burger and all these meat alternatives. And I think the factory farmed cattle, it was for every pound of beef produced gave off 33 pounds of CO2. Compared, the Impossible Burger was close to that. And then for their regeneratively farmed cattle, grass-fed, like we're talking about, there was a sink of 3.5 pounds of carbon for every pound of beef produced. So like you said, one of the and this is the irony when you were talking about earlier about a big part of the vegan argument being, it's bad for the environment. Well, we're showing that if you farm cattle properly, it can actually be a carbon sink. And then, you can buy your meat locally, whereas like you said, a lot of vegan, if you're going to the supermarket and you're buying yourself fruit salad with papaya, banana, pineapple, that's coming from all over the world. The amount of CO2 that's being given off. And I saw stats the other day, which I think it was the transport industry is responsible for 28.5% of CO2. The agriculture is 4%, of which beef is less than 2%. And beef could actually become less again, obviously, if everyone was farming correctly.
If you're farming correctly, and exactly, it's like avocado. Avocado for me is, I put avocado with Coca-Cola and Tesco's in my devil box. They are.
That's going in room 101 straight away.
Exactly. So yeah, I think I am a nature. Obviously, we are all from where we come from, and I am from Devon. I am from farming stock, so I'm bound to say that I think that the family farm run ethos. It doesn't have to be family run. It doesn't have to be the old families that were there, but people who will take on land and will treat that land with respect, will treat the animals with respect, will sell to the local, whatever it's going to be, to get to the end consumer. That to me is what we need to do going forward. So it is a kind of reverse back to where we were. I was having a conversation with someone who does catering. And they proudly, well, actually, it wasn't me, it was my wife, she was in a meeting. And the person said proudly, soon we won't be having beef on our menu. And she's like, what? You're not upset. But because it was their way of saving the planet. So it's like, so
they're replacing it with?
Well, exactly. But are you going to have avocado? Are you going to have, what else are you doing? Now, I reckon this person thought it's a great headline to put out there. I thought, well, not in this part of the world, jumping,
barking up the wrong tree.
You're barking up the wrong tree. But these simple messages that go out are dangerous, because one of my big worries, and I'd be interested to see what you guys, if I can ask you guys a question, is one of my worries for my kids, and I always say to Millie, Jack, and Sam, is where you get your truth from. Now, when I was growing up, there was little outlets. There was the BBC, there was newspapers. But that moment when you work out that a newspaper is a business, not an information source, kind of blows your mind. As for me, growing up thinking, hang on a minute, they have an agenda. They're not just
selling. Quite a serious agenda too.
Absolutely. So my concern, and it's not just about food, but that's my industry and that's what we're talking about. But broader speaking, where's your truth from? Where does it come from? And who's going to verify that truth? There was only one truth when I was growing up. For my kids, there's universal truth, there's belief truth, there's my truth, there's group truth. It's like, really? Are those all? But actually, those are all then religious. You put all those in a bundle. So if we're trying to get people to buy the argument that the planet will be saved in a different way than what is trendy on social media, how do you go about getting that information across? In what format?
Well, this is the reason why we're having conversations like this, because this is something I come up against all the time. And like you said, there seems to be an agenda in the news at the moment which is pushing this idea of veganism, and all these big corporations are jumping on the back of it. I think I saw Wagamama's the other day saying 50% of their menus now vegan to save the planet. That's the line. And I've read books on the subject, speaking to farmers, and then just seeing observationally around me people that have eaten a vegan diet versus not eating the vegan diet. And I just think meat a case for better quality meat is the answer to so many of these problems. That's why I like having these conversations, and this is one of the messages I'm putting out there. And it's interesting because this is something I'm pushing a lot at the moment, healthy meat, and I'm experiencing some censorship as a result of it on my social media channels. And you just think when you say like a newspaper, news outlets are businesses, well, social media's a business, Facebook's a business, Instagram's a business. They're all, it's all under one umbrella. Who, they can push an agenda, and we're seeing that at the moment. You're seeing people being censored for speaking out, and I'm experiencing censorship at the moment for speaking out for the case for better meat, which seems crazy to me.
But then you've got to think that this is where want to get a little bit tinfoily. Why would they want to censor you speaking about better quality meat? This is this, and ultimately, I think this is something that I've got one reason why I think why I'm sure sort of everyone comes to their own conclusion as to why. But to me, the most obvious reason is that they don't want people to do it. They want people to eat, better quality source meat and all that kind of thing. But then you got to think, well, why is that?
Well, so because
that's the thing. Sorry, just 1 second. I can't see how a massive conglomerate or corporation or whatever, like Instagram or Facebook or Meta or whoever runs it nowadays, really care about saving the planet, and that's why they're censoring your page from talking about meat. Yeah. So why do they not want people to do it, or do they not want to hear your message heard?
Well, with the case for better quality meat is coming out of small family-run farms. Big food is a big business.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about vegan food, the Impossible Burger, all these things, you're dealing with monocropped agriculture on a massive scale, which is a huge multi-billion-dollar industry.
And his thought, sorry to jump in, but one of the issues that I have is if you go onto a farm around here and it's got cattle on it, free-range cattle, beef, lamb, chicken, there's no monoculture. If you have a monoculture and you are growing wheat or maize or whatever it's going to be, anything that lands on it, you're going to kill.
Yeah.
So you don't want a monoculture. If you look around the fields around here, you've got, we were talking about stoats and weasels, and you're talking about the hedgerows. And one of the most beautiful things about Devon is we've still got our hedges. You go in this country, you go to Norfolk and Suffolk, nothing against them, lovely places, but they're flat, no hedges. You think of the wildlife that's in our hedges.
Mm-hmm. Why did they get rid of all the hedges?
Economics.
Really?
That's so. If you look at all the fields around here, we're lucky because it's undulating. So, number one, we're not great at growing wheat, but then we can do, and we do it okay. But in that part of the world, if you've got a hedge that's 6 foot wide and runs for 100 metres, you take that out in between two fields, you can plant crops on it.
Yeah.
But down in this part of the world, you've got that hedge. So within that hedge, you have got all manner of wonderful wildlife. You've got butterflies, you've got moths, you've got everything. Now, you go to the flyover states in America, and all you've got is just, as you say, this monoculture.
Endless fields.
And they don't want to. They're producing product that is reducing the soil, reducing the nutritions in the soil, and killing anything that lands on it. So you take a metre of space there and you say, well, I'm going to find out what's in that metre. It's going to be whatever crop is grown. Yeah. Everything else will be killed. If you come into the West Country, or that's my place, so I'm not going to talk about anywhere else, you look at a metre, not even the hedges, but next to the hedges, you're going to have so much more wildlife.
Yeah.
And it also, people are putting more land back to that. And I think that's another thing that's really important. It's the fact that we should leave the hedges, plus we should have land set aside, and you should have a policy for your soil. Yeah. That's another thing that people are learning now, is that if you go through the winter without any crop on your land, then the rain comes and all that beautiful red Devon soil is washed out to sea. Well, why not put a crop over winter, which is going to actually help bind it together, and is actually going to then, when you plough it into the field, is going to add nutrition into the land, into the soil. Yeah.
It's probably art to it, isn't it? It seems like, and it's just getting whitewashed by this huge machine, basically. The farming big food machine.
The one of the other things as well with the monocropping, coming back to the sort of vegan argument of not killing animals, so many animals are killed by monocropped.
It's because of the stuff they spray on it. Is that why?
So there's a number of reasons, right? So you've got the fertilizers, pesticides, fungicides. Obviously, pesticides are on there to kill insects. You've got the fertilizers, which are And then you've got birds that eat those insects that can get poisoned from the pesticides. You've got fertilizers which run off into local rivers and can kill aquatic life. And then on top of that, you've got these massive combine harvesters that plow the fields. Everything that's living under that surface is getting churned up with that combine harvester. So that, there's the fact of the matter is that there's death in harvesting plants, especially when it's monocropped and using all these pesticides, herbicides and fungicides.
But it's like if you speak to people, and again, they won't eat meat, and if that's for the reasons that you discussed earlier, then again, I'm not against vegans and vegetarians. Again, I love the fact that people are taking an interest in what they eat. But if you then talk to them and they say, but I eat fish, then that is another sort of, for me, is another intake of breath. Now, if it is that you've gone line fishing for trout, bass, either legally or illegally, son, and you've caught it on a line and you've caught your one that you're allowed, fine, the planet can deal with that.
Yeah.
If you are drag netting and you are pulling up massive collateral damage, and it's great that actually with David Attenborough and Blue Oceans, people are now taking a notice of what's under the sea. But don't, again, look into it, look about where it's sourced, look about the collateral damage of it, how much of it was thrown back in the sea. We got some great fishermen in this part of the world. You've got line caught, you've got a better understanding of what is sustainable. Make the decision, but go out and get your information, and don't just look at I try and look at vegans' point of view and vegetarians' point of view, because otherwise all I'm doing is feeding myself what I want to hear. I'm it's self-prophecy. So actually, fine, if you want to eat fish or you want to have a vegetarian diet, look into it, but make sure, again, this is what we're saying, that it's not coming from like a monoculture where they're using a lot of fertilizer comes from the oil industry. It's a byproduct of. So just have a really good look at everything. I don't know it all. There's no way you can. Which is why what I like to spout on about is local West Country family businesses that are supporting local and looking up. Like you said, it's have a plan for your soil. Back in the day, you would have grass. You'd have the stock on the grass. That would then do what stock do onto the grass. You would then plough it up. You would then have a cycle of crops. Crops that would take nutrition out of the soil, and then crops that would produce the nutrition back into the soil. Then you would, because you've got beef cattle on the or whatever your stock is, or chicken or whatever, you've got your fertilizer there. So then you've got your fertilizer, goes back on the land. You're using your own fertilizer, and you have this beautiful virtual circle. You're not having to bring in product from around the world. I remember once I went to a talk with Princess Anne, who is she's not backward at coming forward, and she said there's a saying, the customer is king. The customer shouldn't be king because they don't know enough about the subject. And it's like she's brave because she'll say it and she doesn't really mind. It doesn't have to, I suppose. But that is true. I'm afraid is when I don't know about something, about why should I demand something that I know very little about? Why should I be, or collectively us say, no, I want that. There was something that came up about mobile phones, and it was, we'll give you a mobile phone, the new model, whenever it comes out. Guaranteed, just sign up. I'm like, no, I don't want a phone every year. Why do I need a phone every year?
So one phone that doesn't break down,
Exactly. So do you know what I mean?
All
it's
the
like
same thing.
Some in marketing have said what the people want is they want a one payment and they want the new phone all the time. What cost is that? What cost is that to the environment? If we're all getting a new phone, a new laptop every single year. But I think one of the things, and maybe it's a good thing, and maybe it is a good thing, but going back to your point about if you were doing a podcast that was purely promoting vegan and vegetarian, I'm sure there would be people out there that would be happy to sponsor you, because there's a lot of people who are happy to spend money to lobby against the meat industry, because they are very passionate against people like me. I mean, in our past, we've been, we've had factories firebombed, we've had death threats.
Genuinely?
Yeah, but back when I was about Jack's age, there was a big movement about actually going into sheds, letting animals out, coming on. We had a lorry firebombed. We had we had to take our addresses off everything, and that was scary. I'm not
of course,
saying,
definitely.
So that's not something I'm at all proud of. But what it did make you do is stop and think, these people are actually passionate and serious, so we must engage with them.
Yeah.
We must actually talk to these people so they realise that at least they got the facts, which is what's great. And what, like you're saying, give people the facts. If they turn around, having had all the facts from the vegetarians, from the butchers, the farmers, people interested like yourself, if they've done all that, and then they decide, you're still the devil incarnate, I'm still going to buy my crops, and I'm still going to live in Devon, but I'm going to live on a vegetarian diet, understanding that it's going to be flown in, but I'm okay with that. Fine. Yeah. It can't do any more than that. Yeah. But don't just throw us under the bus without first finding out what we're trying to say. Like you're saying, actually, I think it's really sad that people are going to blacklist you, or whatever the expression is, because they don't like your message. Listen to the message, keep yourself calm, and then make your decision.
Try and approach it like even-handedly.
I think so. That's one of the issues which is being sort of exasperated by social media at the moment. It's like everyone's living in such echo chambers. You're surrounded by all the same messages that you already believe, and no one's having constructive conversations. No one's coming together and listening to each other, and then trying to find a middle ground, or not even trying to find it, but just listening in the first place to someone else's opinion. It's creating an environment where one side's just trying to shout down the other side, and it doesn't make for progress.
No, it doesn't. Again, a number of years ago, we started talking to Compassion in World Farming, and I have a huge respect for Compassion in World Farming. They came down to visit us. The lady that came down, it's a long time ago, and as I said, I've been hit on the head a lot, so I can't remember her name, but she came down and we gave her a vegan meal. We produced a vegan meal and we all ate it together out of respect for her. Because what we didn't want to do was give her a vegan meal and sit there with a bloody great sirloin steak and go, we're meat industry. So we said, no, with respect, we're all going to sit down. And which sort of softened her a little bit, because she realised that we would just wanted to understand.
What did you make her? Sorry.
It was a lot of nuts. I remember that. There's a lot of nuts.
Like a nut roast situation.
A nut roast, pulses, a lot of salad. I can't say it was the best meal I've ever had, but the conversation was great, and it was a gesture. Of course, It was
that's a nice gesture.
Putting out your hand out, saying, "Look, it doesn't contain
not
a
all
knife."
Bad.
So, but we learned a huge amount from her, and we came to the conclusion at the end of the meal, which is, I've said it once already today, is I want people to eat less meat, but meat that they know about, and I want people like you to make products that are innovative, that means the whole carcass is used, and that's where we came to at the end of the meal. And I said, we started off way apart, and we both came a little step closer, because
which is good.
We at the time we were just produced chicken that produced indoors, and that's quite an interesting one, because intensively reared is being taken now by the press and everything to be a bad thing. But if I go into hospital, I want intensive care. If I'm ill, I don't want slack care. I want intensive poultry. There's problems with it. Absolutely, there's problems with it. I get that. But we started listening, and someone said to me, what would you be uncomfortable about telling your kids about what you do for a living?
It's an interesting question.
And I think it's really interesting, because at the same time, it's like the worst lies are the ones you tell yourself. So if you're not going to lie to your kids. So if your kids are like, what is bad about this, Dad? Well, they don't have natural daylight in a shed. They don't have enough space. They don't live. Like this. And that's what... And if you can justify it back without lying, then great, you can. But you can't lie to them. So we went out and we basically came up with another way with the RSPCA of growing chicken indoors that they were happy with. And we were happy with, and the Compassion in World Farming didn't think was as bad as it was before, because they had natural daylight. So again, if you can find people that will at least move you towards a central goal, then I think that's what we all want. We don't want to fight, do we? Like you said, we don't want to shout over each other. I'd love to sit with with passionate vegans and vegetarians and tell me where I'm going wrong. Don't shout at me if I'm going wrong, but say, this is the research, this is what I believe. Your point about living with meat and veg that's only been grown from Devon, Cornwall and Somerset, this is wrong because. Great, let's have that
rather than just like, you're wrong because you're wrong and
you kill animals, I hate you. It's like, yes, you do. And I'm not saying come and like me. That doesn't happen.
Listen to what you got. Listen to what you got to say.
Yeah, and if there's something that is wrong with the argument, which is brilliant, which is why I think it's, again, it's nice that hopefully people will listen to it and they'll go and actually find out themselves.
Yeah.
What does just quickly, we were sort of talking about Tesco earlier. So would you not recommend buying any meat from a big supermarket, effectively? Because a lot of it, you can see now the packaging. I try not to go, and I don't ever buy meat really from them sort of thing. But you see on the packaging, which says like reared in England or whatever, and you can see it's trying to appeal to people to make it seem like it's better. Do you think it's all just bullshit?
I wouldn't ever tell anybody not to go to a supermarket. I don't think that's my place, and I have, and again, I'm a butcher, so a vested interest. I think that there are better ways to buy your meat, Harry. I really do.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
From a packaging point of view, from a the plastics whole environmental issue with plastics, also they have to produce products to the common denominator. So you would go in and chicken breast would be in 2s and 4s and so it's in packaging. Well, if you only want one, what do you do with the rest? And I think there are lots of issues around waste and long supply chains. I don't think it's ideal, but also I am privileged to live in a part of the world where we have butchers, we have greengrocers, and they are readily available. We've got, you fall over for farm shops down here.
Yeah, there are a lot of very good farm shops.
So we're really lucky. If I lived in the middle of a city, and that wasn't the thing, then who am I to turn around to those people? But what I would say is, if you go into the supermarkets, they will have in each area free range. They'll have an organic, they'll have a standard, they'll have a foreign, and they'll have a British. So all I would say is, if you look at chicken, actually decide which you want based on some understanding. You go into a supermarket and there'll be someone there. I always say, I wish people chose their meat like they choose their wine. They'll go in and they'll buy the wine aisle and they go, I do love a Melbach. It's fantastic. New World wines are absolutely splendid. Have you been to Constantia? No, it's an absolutely marvellous place in South Africa. It's wonderful. And what they do is they take the grape and they roll it on their thigh, whatever, because it's cool. They've made it cool. They've made buying wine, beer, coffee cool. What I want to do is make buying meat cool. So you go into Tesco's and you go up and you go, look, they've got a free range chicken in here. Where's it from? Is it a slow growing breed?
Yeah.
It's a slow growing breed. Fantastic. I'm going to buy that. But I understand that is not £4, it's £7.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, people will say, you can afford the £7. My point is, we can all afford the £7 because actually, with a bit of understanding, you can get from a whole chicken, you can have a meal for 4 people, 5 people.
Yeah.
Then you got the stock. Then you've got cold. You can actually
get way more out of
it. Like our parents, grandparents did.
It's priorities as well, right? Because people always say this to me about, I probably spend close to £100 a week.
I've got to go and get my thing done.
Should we wrap up?
No, do you want to crack on, or do you want to? Is that all good?
All right.
Cheers.
Good to see you.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. Best of luck. Yeah.
Nice one. Yeah. What I say to people is always, priorities. Like, I spend probably £100 a week on my meat, and I eat a lot of meat because of training and stuff like that. But people will spend next to nothing on their food. For someone, a good food shop might be how little they can spend on their food, but they've gone out on the weekend and spend £100 on Saturday night out, buying beers and whatnot. So it's just priorities in that regard. And then, like you said, eating the whole animal nose to tail. How cheap is liver?
Exactly. Yeah.
I bought a 250 gram bit of grass-fed beef liver the other day. It was a couple quid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's next to nothing.
But you're dead right. It's how you prioritise spending your money. And what we've got to all do is we've got to get people to... You've got to think of ways of grabbing people's attention. So I always used to tell people I was in the in-mouth entertainment business because it was sounded a bit dodgy. And they go, what's that? Well, because food is entertainment.
Yeah.
And what we've got to do is say to people, actually, you're putting it inside your body.
Yeah.
You're not wearing it. You're not driving it. It's going inside your body.
Yeah.
So totally support what you're saying. It's first off, you are what you eat. Actually, let's look into it. If you make the decision that you want to be a vegetarian, you want to be a vegan, you want to eat, like you keep saying, and you're dead right. It's like there's different layers. If it's about nutrition, if it's about the environment, or you just don't like the thought of living off the back of it, fine. Make the decision. Find out about it, and let people who are trying to do their job of maximising the animal, let them get on with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's my big thing, is making it, like I said a moment, about wine, about your car, about the brand, about all these things. Just what I want people to do is put food at the top of that.
Yeah. Well, you talk about car, and I always use the analogy that if you had a Ferrari, you wouldn't go and put, shit fuel in it. You'd put the best quality fuel in it. I don't understand how people don't treat their body like their body's a Ferrari. You want the best quality food, and they say human beings turn over every cell in your body every 7 years. So what do you think you're making those new cells out of? And I always say to people, do you want to be making those cells out of grass-fed cattle, organically farmed fruit and veg, or do you want to be making it from McDonald's and Burger King? And then when you put it that way, people kind of get it a little bit more,
Yeah, it is. And so I always, again, don't blame other people. Look what you can do. We in the meat industry have not seen this coming. I don't think that we have thought it's okay to go to Costa Coffee and for you and I to sit down and have a coffee and maybe something to eat, and it's going to be £9, £3 for a coffee. And so that that's like the basic coffee. And I've got nothing against people who have managed to sell coffee at good prices, Sam, if you're listening. I've got no problems with that. What I'm saying is, you've done a great job, Sam. I've done a rubbish job, because people come into the shop and they'll look at a whole chicken for a £5 and they'll say, oh, that's expensive.
Yeah.
It's going to feed 4 people nutritiously. The animal has been grown, it has been processed, it's been looked after correctly, and I want £5 for it. If it's organic, I might want £8 or £9 for it. Why are people who are selling coffee, selling phones, selling all these things much better at making people make the right decisions in their book than me? £5 for a chicken is nothing. It's 120. If it's 4 people, it's 125 for the meat on your dish.
Yeah.
And then you got local fruit and veg. It's going to cost you nothing.
Yeah.
So that meal is going to cost you £1.50 a person.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you then make soup out of it, you're going to get soup the next day. It is not a lot of money.
Yeah. And you are starting to see it now. Like, it probably started with one of the first foods that popped into my head was bread. I'm not a huge proponent of bread because the gluten and all that sort of stuff from a nutritional standpoint, but Artisan bread came back into the scene a few years ago with sourdough, and you saw bakeries starting to pop off, and now you're starting to see it with meat. You're starting to see these regenerative farms playing on the grass-fed, grass-finished angle. Places like Riverford, for example. They're big. You walk. We lived in London a few years ago. You walk around London, every bus stop had a Riverford sign on it. Yeah. So it is starting to move that way. People are, the marketing in the the food industry, or the real food industry, should I say? Proper farming practices is starting to catch up, and people are starting to get the picture.
Yeah, I think they are, and I think there's definitely more's got to. Excuse me. More's got to be done. One of my challenges, to be honest with you, is I'm a high street butcher, so I need to be supplying meat that is appropriate for everybody. If a lord and lady come in, or someone who is not in work but has their £5 is still a £5 is still a £5. I don't get more for lord and lady so and so £5. I have to get everybody to come in the shop, and I have to supply what they need. So what does that mean? What that means is I can't afford for everything to be organic.
Yeah.
So if people were to go into the shop and say, I heard him spouting on the other day, but he's got British chicken in there. Yes, I have. And I'm absolutely proud of that, because I don't have a problem. I've looked into it. I've grown indoor chicken myself for many years. So yes, not everything's organic, because that is for a specific decision. I don't think that I can make the organic decision for all my customers.
Yeah.
Now, maybe that's me not being bold enough, but I still need a business. I'm still a businessman.
Yeah.
I still, I've got to keep my wife in cardigans. I've got stuff I need to pay. So I can be challenged and want to be challenged about stuff. And I think that's important.
And also, it's ultimately, like you say, it's the customer, it's the consumer, right? It's the consumer that's going to drive up the standards. If everyone turned around tomorrow and said, "Oh, actually, I only want free range chicken," and everyone said that,
yeah.
Every butcher shop in the country, all they'd sell is free range chicken. Yeah. So it's about educating the individual, and then everyone raising their standards and asking more from their farmers, asking more from their butchers, and it's easy for you to then comply with that.
You're dead right. It's interesting you say that, because a while ago when I was working for a business that supplied to the supermarkets, we did work with Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, who I personally am a big fan of his, and Jamie Oliver. And it's interesting because we got involved with them, and they wanted to expose the chicken industry. So they phoned up the industry. No one would talk to them, but because we were West Country based and we were doing free range and organic, and we were doing RSPCA, they would come and talk to us. And they did TV programs. They're probably on repeat or YouTube somewhere. I don't know where it is. And I was a fraction of the program, but our point was, there is another option. You can produce a free range chicken that is access to outdoors, beautiful. We put them in orchards. And it's fun, and they're still being grown. They're grown now and sold in the supermarkets, and it's a really good product. It's a slow growing bird, and it was a good product. And what you just said happened. Suddenly, our sales of free range and organic chicken went through the roof, because we had got people who were perceived as being cool and trendy, Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, Jamie Oliver. Yeah. We had got them to interview us, understand. I mean, whatever you think about Jamie Oliver and Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, they got involved. They went right through everything. They listened. They took it all in. They came back with questions, and they didn't agree. They came back. They went back, and it went on for ages. And they went out and they actually said, this is another option. Yeah. Spend a bit more. Yeah. And they got criticised. Oh, that's right for you. You were both celebrities. You earn lots of money. You can afford it. And again, they knew that was coming, and they were like, yes, but if you cook it this way and you produce this. So you're dead right. You need to find people who are going to get. But that lasted maybe. After each program, it probably lasted about a year, maybe 18 months, and then people get in their old habits again. Yeah. I mean, we're on the back of a pandemic. Yeah. Now, and we were doing deliveries, as most butchers were. We were doing free deliveries to our local customers in each area, which was great fun because you actually met customers, and Jack and Sam and Flats would go and do the deliveries, and it was great fun. In fact, it was. Yeah, digressing slightly, but if you ordered meat in Exeter and you opened the door and Flats or Jack was there, that was we were getting a lot more orders than we probably would have done. But those people were like, "We'll never go back to supermarkets. We won't." But other stresses, and I'm not knocking them genuinely, because other stresses and strains came on. But it's your point; they didn't elevate food to be the main priority. Yeah. They did because they had the time. As soon as they didn't, it went down a notch. It went down below the other things they wanted to do. So what we're asking people to do is not straightforward, in my opinion. You have to think, right, it's like if you have to make time for it, if your life depended on it, you would get it done. It's one of the things when I worked for Ranjit would say, well, if your life depended on it, Andrew, what would you do? So money becomes no object. You have to get it done, because by the end of the day, if you don't, you're dead. And that's quite a useful thing for me when I'm actually thinking about stuff, about getting exercise. It's like, actually, I need to prioritize this, because otherwise the day will come and I can justify to myself, I didn't have time today.
Well, one of my teachers, Paul Check, he often says health becomes your number one priority sooner or later. You can either make it your number one priority on your own terms now, or it's going to kick you in the arse at some point in the future. And food's a massive part of that. So the way I see it is investing in good quality food now. It's going to save you a hell of a lot in medical bills further down the line.
You're dead right. It's how many, and it's really sad that a shock in people's lives have to prioritize food, isn't it? A number of people will come in and they'll be like, unfortunately, they're going through chemotherapy or they're going through something to do with cancer. I'm going to clear up my diet because they've been told to do that. And as humans, we do need often that kick to kick us out of. And I was kind of hoping the pandemic would kick a lot of people from what was actually important to them. Yeah. And I think, it reaffirmed for me a lot of things that I'd let slip from a like personal what I wanted to do. You know, all the kids came home. We were cooking every night, and actually you go back to that because you couldn't go out. You couldn't do stuff that actually was the modern trappings. It was like we couldn't do it.
Yeah,
it was stripped away. But I have to say, and it's not comfortable. But we had some real highlights in lockdown because it was stripped away.
Yeah.
You know, we wouldn't watch telly of it. You know, we would, because everyone was home, it was like, right, this is what we're going to do. And I do think that there's a lot of things that have come out of the pandemic that still I've managed to keep hold of. And I think that's important. And to go down to bringing it, you know, a little bit back to rugby and Chiefs, to be able to go down and watch rugby.
Yeah.
And, you know, win or lose, I'm like, I'm here and I'm watching a sport that I love, surrounded by people. And if win or lose, this is brilliant. I couldn't do this. It was taken from me.
Yeah.
And all those times when we watched on the telly, you know, it wasn't the same. But again, for me, for the lockdown, it's like when I can do the things I choose to do again, I'm just going to be so much more appreciative of them. And I'm not preaching. It sounds like I'm preaching. I'm not. I'm just saying, and you were saying at the moment, we've all got to prioritise stuff. And you've got to make that decision. I've got to make the decision. The kids have got to make the decision. My kids have got to make that decision. And I just want people to elevate food to the top of that agenda for them.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think if people can do that, I think that they'll like it and they'll realise that it's a positive move.
Yeah. Andy, I think that's a great point to finish on. You nailed that last sentence. I don't think I can top it. If people want to come check out the butchers, have you got a website where they can see where they all are, or what's the best way to get in touch with you?
To be fair, our website's not great, but all the shops are on Facebook. There's our head office is in Exeter, in Sidwell Street. If anybody's got any questions or challenges, then they can send it to Lloyd Maunders in Sidwell Street, and I will endeavour to come back to them. As I say, it's always a joy to be challenged.
Okay, brilliant. I'll link the Facebook and everything in the show notes, so if anyone wants to get in touch, they can. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks so much, Andy, for coming on. My website's apenutrition.co.uk. Got a discount code for podcast listeners is AS10. If you've got any questions for me, the best place to get me is Instagram, ape_nutrition. Thanks for listening.